Imagine walking into your local pharmacy and right there on the shelf, next to the cough syrup, you could buy cocaine. Not on a shady street corner at the store, legally sold with a smile as good for what ails you. There was a time, not that long ago, when cocaine was absolutely everywhere. It was in wine that the Pope himself reportedly adored. It was in medicine marketed for children. And most famously of all, it was the secret ingredient in the original recipe for Coca-Cola. For a few wild decades, the world was convinced cocaine was a miracle. This is the strange, true story of how we fell head over heels for it, and then turned on it completely. But the story doesn't start with a lab or a soda fountain. It starts high in the mountains of South America, thousands of years ago. For countless generations, the indigenous peoples of the Andes chewed the leaves of the coca plant. And it's important to be clear here. Chewing a coca leaf is a world away from the powerful drug we're talking about. It's a mild stimulant, roughly in the ballpark of a strong cup of coffee, and it helped people cope with hunger, fatigue, and the thin mountain air at high altitude. For those communities, coca was a sacred, everyday, and pretty harmless part of life. The trouble would begin much later, when the modern world figured out how to concentrate that gentle leaf into something far, far stronger. The turning point came in the middle of the 1800s. As chemistry advanced, scientists in Europe managed to do something new. They extracted and purified the single most active compound out of the coca leaf. In 1859, a young German chemist is credited with successfully isolating it, and he named it cocaine. And this was a completely different beast. Where the leaf was mild, this purified powder was intensely, dramatically powerful, but nobody understood the danger yet. All they saw was an exciting new substance that could numb pain, banish fatigue, and make you feel euphoric and invincible. In an age desperate for medical breakthroughs, it looked like a gift from science itself. And here's the part that's hard to believe today. For a while, cocaine was celebrated as a genuine wonder drug. Doctors were thrilled because it turned out to be a fantastic local anesthetic. For the first time, surgeons could numb a specific part of the body, especially for delicate eye surgery, which was a legitimate and lasting medical breakthrough. But it didn't stop at real medicine. Cocaine got marketed as a cure for basically everything. Feeling tired? Cocaine. Depressed? Cocaine. Got a toothache, a head cold, or hay fever? There was a cocaine product for that. It was sold as a pick-me-up, an energy booster, and a fountain of well-being, and people bought it by the bucket load. Nowhere was the craze more glamorous than in a product called Vin Mariani. Starting in the 1860s, an enterprising fellow named Angelo Mariani created a wine infused with coca, and it became an absolute sensation across Europe and beyond. This was the celebrity energy drink of its day. Royalty drank it. Famous authors and inventors praised it. And in the ultimate celebrity endorsement, Pope Leo XIII was reportedly such a devoted fan that he carried a personal flask of the stuff, and even awarded Mariani a gold medal from the Vatican for his wonderful creation. Just sit with that for a second. There was a moment in history when the head of the Catholic Church was, reportedly, a paid spokesman for cocaine wine. And then came the most famous cocaine product of all time, though most people don't realize it. In 1886, an American pharmacist named John Pemberton invented a new tonic drink. He was partly inspired by that coca wine, but with alcohol falling out of favor in his region, he made a non-alcoholic version instead. He combined an extract of the coca leaf, which contained cocaine, with caffeine from the cola nut and a lot of sugar. He called it Coca-Cola. Yes, the original Coca-Cola, the most famous soft drink on the planet, genuinely contained cocaine. It was marketed as a refreshing tonic that could cure headaches and lift your spirits. The coca in the name was not a coincidence. It was an ingredient. Cocaine didn't just win over the public. It seduced some of the greatest minds of the age, and none more famously than Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. As a young doctor, Freud became genuinely obsessed with cocaine. He took it himself. He wrote a glowing paper about it, practically singing its praises, and he became a passionate evangelist for the drug. His biggest idea was that cocaine could be used to cure other addictions, like addiction to morphine. So he enthusiastically gave it to a friend who was struggling with morphine, and it went horribly wrong. Instead of curing his friend, Freud simply traded one devastating addiction for another, and his friend spiraled. It was one of Freud's first big, painful lessons that this miracle drug had a very dark side. By the late 1800s, cocaine had saturated everyday life to a degree that's genuinely shocking by today's standards. You could buy it in an astonishing range of ordinary products, with no prescription and no warning label. There were cocaine-laced tonics and soft drinks. There were powders and sprays sold to clear up a stuffy nose. And most jarring of all, there were products like cocaine toothache drops, which were marketed cheerfully and openly as a remedy, including for children. Imagine an ad promising to soothe your kid's sore tooth with a nice dose of cocaine. Nobody batted an eye, because the terrible truth about what regular use actually did to people simply hadn't caught up with the hype yet. But it always catches up. As the years passed, the ugly reality of cocaine became impossible to ignore. Doctors and families started seeing the same devastating pattern over and over. People who used it regularly were becoming dependent, desperate, and sick. The euphoria wore off and left behind crushing crashes, paranoia, ruined health, and lives falling apart. The very thing that had been sold as a cure for exhaustion and sadness was, for many, creating a far deeper misery. The miracle was revealing itself to be a trap. The public mood began to shift from fascination to fear, as it became clear that this wonder drug was quietly destroying the people who trusted it. Now, here we have to be honest about a darker current in this history. The turn against cocaine wasn't driven purely by sober medical concern. In the United States especially, the campaign against the drug in the early 1900s got tangled up with the ugly racial prejudices of the era. Newspapers and officials spread lurid, false, and deeply racist scare stories, unfairly linking cocaine to crime within black communities to stoke public panic. It's an uncomfortable but important part of the record. The very real dangers of the drug were often exploited and exaggerated through the lens of bigotry, and that fear-mongering became a powerful engine driving the push toward prohibition. Whatever the tangled mix of motives, genuine medical alarm and ugly prejudice both, the result was a dramatic reversal. The government moved to shut the whole thing down. In 1914, the United States passed the Harrison Narcotics Act, a landmark law that heavily regulated and taxed drugs like cocaine and opium, and effectively ended their days as casual over-the-counter products. And of course, by this point, that famous soda had long since changed its recipe. Coca-Cola had removed the cocaine years earlier, around 1903, cleaning up its formula as attitudes shifted, though it kept using a specially processed, cocaine-free coca leaf for flavor, which, remarkably, it still does to this day. The era of legal, everyday cocaine was over. In the span of a single generation, it had gone from miracle cure to public enemy. And that, sadly, was not the end of the story, just the end of the legal chapter. Pushed out of pharmacies and sodas, cocaine didn't disappear. It went underground, and over the following decades it grew into something far more dangerous than any Victorian tonic, a massive illegal global trade. That black market would go on to fuel violent cartels, devastating addiction, and immense suffering all around the world, a shadow that stretches right up to the present day. The gentle leaf that Andean communities had used peacefully for millennia had been transformed by the modern world into one of the most destructive and profitable illegal substances on Earth. The miracle cure had become a genuine catastrophe. So what do we take from all of this? The weird history of cocaine is really a cautionary tale about hype. Again and again, humanity has run into a new substance, felt its immediate pleasant effects, and leapt to the conclusion that it must be safe and wonderful long before actually understanding what it does to us over time. Cocaine was cheered by scientists, blessed by a pope, poured into the world's favorite soda, and sold to children, all before anyone grasped how addictive and destructive it truly was. It's a powerful reminder that everyone's doing it and it's sold at the store have never, ever been the same thing as it's safe. Sometimes the miracle cure is just a disaster that hasn't shown its face yet. It's genuinely wild to look back and realize that within living memory of your great-grandparents, cocaine was a normal, legal, even respectable part of everyday life. A tonic for the tired, a treat in a glass, a gift blessed by the powerful. The story of how the world embraced it and then recoiled from it is one of history's great cautionary tales, and a fascinating window into how quickly we can be dazzled by something before we understand its true cost. To be perfectly clear, today we know exactly how dangerous and addictive it is, and this has been the history of a mistake, not a recommendation. But what a strange, revealing mistake it was. If you like your history true, surprising, and told to you straight, subscribe. We've got a whole world of it. See you in the next one.